We're back on Bitcoin study sessions. We're taking a bit of a divergent path today. Typically, we talk about canonical Bitcoin literature, we explore philosophy, we look into academic papers. But recently, we've taken a bit of a hard right into the practical, and we've invited on some people that are not just thinking about these things, but they're building them, and they are taking action within the environment to bring freedom technology to people in different ways. And with that, it is an absolute pleasure to have today Calvadev. And Calvadev, to give a little bit of an introduction, um, is just genuinely one of the best people I know. I'm sitting next to perhaps the best person I know, my co-host Grant.
The
But
podcast will continue. Thank you.
but Calvadev, not only is he the fastest guy that I've ever seen do 100 burpees, he has impeccable taste in music and is just utterly kind. He was one of the people that I experienced the network school with, and this chaotic yet ordered time of my life when we were doing just really incredible things as a group and bonding very deeply together. Calvadev was also easily the number one highlight of Man Camp, which I taught at the Network State. Easily my best student, and a great team player. Um, but he's also a builder. This is the founder of Shopster, which is an online marketplace, and also the founder of Milk Market. Uh, Calvadev is doing things to bring raw milk, which I think we've talked about renaming as milk, and bringing milk to people in a way that doesn't have intervention from bureaucrats, as I would think is probably a good way to say it. So we're going to talk about freedom technology. We're going to talk about philosophy, and yeah, we're going to talk about that fantastic head of hair. You're looking very very you kill my father.
Yeah, I can't have to wear the hoodie up because otherwise my real rattiness is going to be revealed.
Yeah, you always look like you're in search of a six-fingered man. Yeah. Thank you for joining us today. Joining us from Seattle. If he's knifed on the street, then we'll just continue on and run some credits. So
It's just
yeah,
the happenings of the day.
yeah. Tell us what's good, man. Tell us about Milk Market. Kind of give people, I guess, maybe a background on your motivation, why you have chosen to exit a role with a high paying corporate job in order to become a founder in freedom technology.
Yeah, so I think the furthest back I can like trace most of stuff is like going back to college, and that's where I went to UT Dallas, and Ross Ulbricht is actually he's like the most famous alumni from that university. So he went there for his undergrad for physics, and like there was always like this cover of like, oh, Ross Ulbricht was here, the founder of the Silk Road was here, like that's what. And then the other most famous person from our school, his name's on the business building, and he's a famous Indian investor who was arrested for fraud. So it's like our university just pumps out criminals, I guess. But I was inspired in a way to like, not necessarily by like the spreading of drugs and all this stuff, but by trying to create open market systems founded in like free market principles, and being able to like not have to rely on third parties in order to be able to just interact and exchange, cooperate with human beings. So as I was like approaching the end of college and I was already getting my internships and stuff lined up, I was like feeling a bit of an itch to just try something on my own, because I'd never coded or done anything outside of like out of the jobs that I had to do. So I wanted to have like personal experience with things. And I took a random trip. I took a week off from school. I just didn't go to any classes that week, and I took a random trip to San Francisco. And I went to a hackathon. Actually, at a Replit hackathon, like before vibe coding was even coined and all this stuff, just like AI assisted stuff. And I pumped out like the first version of Shopster. And because and a lot of the initial motivation came from when I first found out about Nostr. It was all like focused around it was all focused around social media and just like the social aspect of stuff. And by that point, when I had found out about it, which was around 2022 or at the end of 2022, 2023, um, I had already removed all of my social media. I hadn't had anything. I didn't really engage with anything. I actually just found Jack Dorsey tweeting about it because a friend shared a link, and I didn't even have like the account or anything. I was just able to view it. And I was like, oh, this seems interesting. So I like downloaded it, started getting posting notes on it. And as things evolved, and I got a little bit more interested in like contributing to Bitcoin, finding a way to like actually maybe push some changes to Bitcoin Core, to the Lightning Network, LND. I started reviewing the Nostr protocol, and I saw how simple and easy it was to actually like add things to it. And there was already some specifications to allow for like certain commerce, mainly classified listings. And I took that with a friend of mine, and we both ran with it. And we kind of like brought it out of the fold and released the first version of Shopster. And I still have a video of how it first looked. And man, is it crazy to see how things have progressed and how shitty it was. But it worked. It functioned, which was like what we were trying to get done. And ultimately, is what matters at the to start. If it works, it's a great place to actually keep going from. But from there, I saw Nostr not as a way to like fix Twitter or fix social media. I saw it more as like a tool for onboarding more people into Bitcoin, and that's how actually what led me into like Cashew as well. Because when I was first developing everything, uh, not having so much technical experience with like integrating with all the Lightning node things and like handling liquidity management, all this stuff, I just like stumbled upon Cashew, like an eCash, and I saw how simple it was to like integrate payments into it while still having Bitcoin native interoperability with it. And the thing that, as we touched on like before the call, like one of the things that I've been like focused on recently is like kind of introducing people into the systems, the freedom technology systems, without having to necessarily throw it in their face that they're interacting with them. Give them better experiences, give them better technical ability to not have to understand everything, and they'll naturally just become experts in how to use the technology without even having realized it. And Cashew is one of those things that makes interacting with Bitcoin very seamless. Because you don't even have to like download wallets. You don't have to do these things. If you want to like have the full functionality of it, yes, you do have to like get a little bit more involved. But for as a starting point for new novices and for people who are just getting into it, it's a great way to like kind of uh, blanket and abstract the underlying Bitcoin technology from it. And from there, that just kind of allowed the marketplace to start growing and getting a little bit more interest, just like fixating on things. And I was just working on the weekends while I was working my corporate job, and actually was working two corporate jobs. So I was overemployed for a bit, trying to like just save as much as I could and work on Shopster on the side. And after 9 months, I got an invitation, or I got accepted to go to a program called Sovereign Engineering in Madeira, which is like it was like the second cohort, which was basically Sovereign Engineering is like a little program similar to the network school, where they just invite a bunch of builders. This one was much smaller, much more constrained. Because especially at the time, that's when Wasabi Wallet was shutting down, the Samurai Wallet developers were getting arrested. So it was a kind of like tumultuous time. People were a little bit on edge. So there's like around 20 people that came to the island, and there that's when I because of that opportunity, I just was like, screw it. I did like a cost analysis of like what is the possible risk of me trying to go all in and failing, and basically it's just I get to move in with my parents, have food on the table, and have a loving family. So it's like there's not really much that can really go wrong other than I just don't have money of my own, which is fine. Still pretty young, so I can try and like make that up along the way. And from there, it's just been a journey of like going all over the place, visiting a bunch of different conferences, seeing a bunch of different cultures, and experiencing a lot of the stuff that really makes people work together and engage in commerce, like what's truly valuable with it. And at network school, which was earlier this year, or early last year, actually, I forget it's 2026, but earlier last year, that's where I was like focusing, trying to figure out exactly what I could grow and like help onboard more people into the marketplace. And that's when I was looking at different avenues and different specific niches that I could like focus on to try and gather more interest. And when I was looking, the obvious one is obviously drugs, but you don't want to really involve yourself in that type of legal battle or like the legal gray areas that are involved with that. And as I was getting more and more involved, like along the way, I had gotten into health, and I was like trying to like improve my diet and all that stuff. And raw milk, especially, came to be one of the things that I had found is just like so heavily regulated. I hadn't known at the time because I live in Seattle, so I guess I had pretty good laws with regards to it. So I would just go to the grocery store and pick it up. I thought it was just normal, but it's like it's more regulated than marijuana in most of the country. It's more regulated than like heroin in certain places, and like it's treated like such a risky and dangerous thing when it's simply something that just comes out of an animal that people just have every day and like that are have had for generations. So, and more broadly as well, the food system is what like really is just so terrible to like the food producers and even like the end consumers, because there's just so much regulatory middlemen that deal with a lot of the like butchering. You have to go to USDA certified butchers in order to be able to sell to your neighbor, which is crazy. You can't even just like hand them a piece of steak. You can't hand them eggs. There's just so much regulatory um, obfuscation that goes into blocking commerce. And like one of the things that um, we're trying to fix is actually making it as easy as possible for people to onboard onto these free systems to allow them to not have to, like, obviously we don't want them to violate the law, but for them to, if anything happens to their operations where they're like shut out from being able to engage economically, they still have an option. They have a plan B where they can exit with Bitcoin, exit with Nostr. They don't have to rely on like Shopify, Amazon, or these big corporations who like dictate everything that's sold on the platform and don't allow them to operate their business, even if it's something so simple as like milk or beef or creams or any of these things. Like there's just so much open area for people to be able to like engage in commerce. And fundamentally, I believe commerce is like the main thing that allows humanity to like be as cooperative as possible. There's no other activity that we do as human beings that like can connect cultures so dramatically, other than like probably music and food. And that's why the intersection of culture and food is one of the reasons why we're like focused on this specific marketplace.
Yeah, there's a lot in that. One thing that I want to note is just the mindset that you approach things and kind of what you discussed. Like this is something I noticed about your personality at the network school, which is that you are you're you're brilliant, but B, you're also not forceful with these things. A lot of people that have ideas want to pound them into the heads of other people. And I've never seen you be um, confrontational or engage in any sort of "I'm right, you're wrong." You have just found a way in order to express the ideas that you believe in. Um, One thing I want to ask you about is the experience of building on Nostr. You noted that. Can you compare that to traditional traditional legacy type of like app development with Google Play Store or the iTunes Store? You say that it's so much easier. Can you kind of frame that out? Like, what's easier about building on Nostr than, say, I was trying to design an app and I found it to be very difficult, um, mainly because of the like you have to build everything from scratch, basically, or you find it, you find it and you repurpose it. But um, what fundamentally makes it easier to build on Nostr than to go out and develop an app and put it into the Google Play Store?
Yeah, I think there's a few aspects to that. One of the at least one of the early things for me was just that since you don't have to like basically request permission from anyone to be able to like access and start building on top of it, even modifying the protocol, like experimenting with it, you have full like open pastures of what you can experiment with and what you can try out. And especially when you're starting early, one of the things that you always need is like live user data, and you also need to be able to store that live user data at like cheaply as you can, because like you're not usually not running on a lot of capital. And one of the very big benefits you get from developing on top of Nostr is that you have basically like the relay infrastructure, where it's like a distributed network of servers that people can like swap in and out of and like port over their data from seamlessly. By having that, whenever I'm like creating an application, I can already find like a directory of all these relays, all these servers that are accessible, and just like pull in data from it that is already live and that's like already being active and used. So you can actually like verify and immediately start testing out and playing around with real data and different server connections, redundancy, and you can actually start your application. Because like in the very, very early days with the original Shopster marketplace, we had zero, we didn't run any servers other than like the website. And like we didn't have any backend, and that was by design as well, because we didn't want to be liable for like hosting all this data, because that was one of the big things that like came from the Silk Road, like actual hosting and the controlling of the data access. And since we didn't have any of these servers, we had like a little bit of resiliency on the legal side, one, but then also our costs to actually operate and like run the website was just like so minimal, because it basically just the cost of like the AI subscription that I had on Replit, and it's just managing all the data becomes much easier because it's just distributed and already like offloaded for you. So it makes developer access much simpler, because all you have to do is write code. You don't have to like try to procure servers, have to do all these things. You're very easily like the resource intensity of being able to build on top of it is not high, and due to the nature of like the Play Store and like the App Store and all that stuff, if you're building like a mobile app on top of it, you're still gonna have to like kind of succumb to that. But with especially now, because like the AI tools are getting a lot easier to like kind of, at least if you have some like technical contextual knowledge of like the protocols you're working with, and can like verbalize it a bit whenever you're like prompting the models. Uh, the AI does actually a pretty decent job of like generating like a base level of like, okay, this is how Nostr works. So then I can like start building on top of it and like grab real data. So you're more you just have a little bit more flexibility and ease and simplicity, because you have a data standard, so you don't have to like, when you're creating a new app, usually you have to like decide on the data schemas and like figure out how exactly it's going to be stored, how you want to structure it, and then often you change that very, very quickly, so you have to like change your whole database and do all this stuff. So with Nostr, since you have at least some base standard, you're able to like work from that and have like a simple understanding, and then just experiment and grow from there.
So simply put, like when I develop an app, I have two things that I have to do. I have to develop the client side, which is what people interact with. And I also have to develop the server side, which is how it's it's the kitchen. It's where things actually happen. So would you say then that developing on Nostr allows you to focus more on the client side and the user experience, the user interface, and you have a lot less to it's a lot lighter lift on the back end on the server side?
Yeah, this is definitely the dynamic that you get, especially like, and new developers coming into it might like, especially like the hardcore developers might be a little against that, because they want to like work on the back end, like that's where like, since that's all where all the meat is. But this actually allows your mentality to like kind of shift more towards like a product focus rather than just like an engineering focus, because that's in the end where every like successful product gets grows and they actually become successful, is through design and through marketing and through like the actual interfaces of everything. Like once you're able to uh, communicate more simply, like whether it is like the actual like text on the screen whenever you're actually like interacting with the website, or how the website interact, how you interact with it, by being able to more consciously know how to communicate uh, simply in those ways, you're able to actually have a more friendly and more quote unquote viral application that can grow and start growing more steadily. And like you're not, and that's one of the biggest shifts. So you have to have a bit more of a consumer focused mindset and product focused mindset, or rather a distribution focused mindset through the product, rather than just a full on technical thing. Like I'm always building, 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 because that you have to offload a lot of the work from it.
So kind of give me an idea. So Shopster's been up and running for 4 years now. Is that about right?
It's been about uh, close to three.
Close to three. So in doing that, what have you seen in terms of like growth and number of users, and um, how does that compare to like when I look at things and I try to evaluate their usefulness, I'm a lot less concerned with where they're at and more concerned with where they're going. Trajectory is way more important than position. So, what is the trajectory of Shopster and how it relates to other types of other marketplaces on Noster?
Yeah. So I can't actually speak too much to the other marketplaces because there's actually that are actively used. There's one other one, and they
Really?
also they have no at least they have no like published or like they haven't talked about like their usage that they have. I'm assuming they're doing fairly well, but yeah, there's only one that's currently live and working, and then there's a couple others that are in development.
Yeah.
And then the other one that's live is like on directly through the social client Amethyst on Android. So that one's like not really the most accurate because it's not all the users are just across every single possible application in that app because they have a lot. They have live streaming, they have Twitter, they have the marketplace, so they have a lot of different things in that. Um, but with regards to like the like our Shopster's trajectory itself, like definitely it's picked up a lot more in like the recent years because I remember whenever we first launched it, we didn't have anyone using it for like the first 5-6 months, I think, if I remember
Hmm.
correctly. So there was just like no activity because people were still getting like I guess comfortable with the idea of like being able to like engage and buy stuff through Nostr since Nostr itself was just so young and people were just like comfortable with it using it as Twitter. They didn't want to really get super involved with like the direct economic activity. But as it got picked up by some of the big Nostr developers, specifically like Vitor, because that's why who works on Amethyst, that's why he implemented it into the app because of Shopster. Then we started getting a bit more traffic, and while a bit more like in late last year, that's when we had like the most activity, the second half of last year. Um, and it's still not like it's not like comparable to like the early internet like growth of like Shopify and Amazon and all that stuff because those were like compounding like like the first few months it was like millions of dollars of volume, but that's also because the idea of e-commerce was just so novel and incredibly new. So people just weren't like it was just like mind blowing to be able to like engage in that online. And at the moment, the biggest learning for myself, at least in these years, has been as I mentioned a little bit earlier, focusing solely on product and features is not what actually drives growth and adoption. It's more of like finding the specific community that you actually solve a real problem for and the specific group that you solve a real problem for. You have to find an actual subsect of the population to do that. And like when I first started, I just thought, okay, my customers are Bitcoiners and Nostr users. But then that's so broad and so general. And then you're not like actually going into the people that truly find it valuable, like the direct merchants who sell like their artisan crafts and then that sell it on repeat. That's like who actually would find something like this valuable. And we have had people who like actually who start their businesses using Shopster, and then eventually just move off towards other things, like they either host their own website or run like a different payment server, or even like use the original traditional marketplaces. And one of the things from that I think is that when starting with something that requires a lot of like consumer like knowledge shift, especially like getting comfortable using Bitcoin solely as the payment rail and all this stuff, you have to kind of introduce like you have to broadcast the usage of these technologies side by side with like traditional legacy technology. So like for example on Milk Market, we actually do accept um, credit card. We allow for people to sign in with Google. We allow them to do like these traditional legacy things. And this is for a function of like allowing for as broad access as possible, but also like consumer behavior doesn't change by just like forcing it in front of them, which I learned with the original Shopster. And like the original Shopster will still be like Bitcoin only, Nostr only. There won't be like any like compromises on that end. It'll just be like the cypherpunk marketplace that I originally created, and it will always be continuing to develop it. But when trying to actually scale and access more, provide more support for like the farmers and for people who try to connect with them, um, we want to make it as convenient as possible for people to be exposed to these technologies every single day. So you want to have it on the side. You want to have like give a discount on top of like the normal prices just to engage with it. similar with like how Square released like the ability to pay with Bitcoin at different terminals. Like it's not really like in your face, like, oh, we accept Bitcoin or like any of this stuff. But like if you find it on the map, it's like, oh, okay, I can get used to it. Even like the merchants themselves, it wasn't thrown at them to be forced. Like you have to accept Bitcoin. It'll drive more customer usage. It was simple like opt in. If you want to accept it, you can. If you don't have to. And there just has to be more focus on developing like a sense of community and a sense of, I guess, like movement or mission around a particular thing before people start actually changing their consumer behavior and like getting involved and feeling comfortable engaging with it every single day. So that's like the biggest thing that's happened with me. And we've had like good volumes just on Bitcoin only, but because the Nostr market and like the Bitcoin market of like artisan goods and like people that are selling like their crafts on Shopster is relatively small, it's not going to be massive volume. In total, we've processed around like $15,000 worth of transactions over the site, which isn't nothing, but it's definitely not like millions and millions of dollars. But
Yeah.
it's growing, and we're trying to like keep it consistent and have more just more people finding it valuable. So we're just that's why we think with specifically with like the milk market site, farmers are people who can actually truly benefit from the technology, but because of how like averse to like new things, new changes they can be. You don't want to have like throw it at them. It's like, oh, we accept Bitcoin, we do all this, we do all that. We use Nostrs, we use private keys to like control your accounts. And so you want to gradually bring them into it. That's a very, very big thing.
I got one more question on kind of how Shopster works. And then I'm kind of excited to hear what Grant's got to say on this, because you have dropped some nice little philosophical nuggets here. But how does Shopster deal with the consumer protection problem? So when eBay kind of took off, I guess, is when they basically put Big Brother into the system, and they said, look, if you have a bad experience, then we'll help you recover your funds. And, there's a rating for everybody on eBay. Just like now, if you look at Amazon, if I shop on Amazon, literally the first thing I do is I look at the reviews, and I note the seller's history and stuff like that. So, how do you solve that problem, or can that problem be solved? And I guess what is the seller behavior like if you take off that Big Brother chain, and you allow people to simply act in their own interest?
Yeah, so the way we do it currently, we do have a review system, but obviously, like it's all run over like the Nostr protocol. So Shopster itself has no ability to take anything down, to remove anything, to have any control over like what's being said on there. So a nice thing, a nice thing for sellers is that whenever they transfer over, like for some reason, if they transfer over from one marketplace to another, they could actually carry over all the reviews from that marketplace, and everything shows up. So, or like, since the protocol is interoperable, they don't even have to like move over to another platform. If they're just viewing the products or something through another marketplace, they can see the same reviews, they can see the same history of everything. So there's a little bit of an established reputation there for the seller. And currently, at least because we have worked on some escrow solutions to help like buyers like protect their funds in case the seller's trying to scam or something. But largely, I think when it comes to a lot of this activity, whenever we like what comes out of allowing the marketplace to have the ability to like completely refund you or like has to deal with all that stuff, not only adds overhead to like the business operating cost itself, but it also removes like the need for us to have any conscious thought about the things we're buying. So we're just like immediately we're not we're not allowing ourselves to like think for ourselves and like try and be like, okay, like, if I just see something on Amazon and I have reviews and I know I can get a refund, I'll just buy it, whatever. And then it comes here and it's like, never mind, I don't want it. And then you just have like more junk accumulating. When instead, if you're like thinking a bit more consciously about, like, if you have a little bit of like a potential risk of like interacting with something that's online like that, you're gonna be thinking, okay, do I really want to buy this? Do I want to spend this much money for it? don't want to engage with this person, there's a little bit more conscious thought that goes into actually like engaging in the activity, and that inadvertently like creates a little bit more trust when actually you actually do engage with it. So you can actually start building like a community with the merchant directly. You start building that reputation naturally, and yeah, that's one of the things that I think is like, because we have like finalized some escrow stuff, but I also haven't wanted to like fully release it because I've just been like wanting to see how the market naturally reacts to that. And what we found as well, with because one cool thing with Noster is like the social graph that you can plug into basically the application throughout any type of application, even if it's not a social media application. And one thing that we've done is we have like the what's called the web of trust, and with the web of trust, you're able to basically utilize the social graph to filter out accounts that aren't connected to it. So like basically, if I follow Lucas and Lucas follows Grant, I will be able to see Grant's posts. But if I follow Lucas and Lucas doesn't follow Grant, then I won't be able to see Grant's posts. Like Grant just doesn't exist, even if his stuff is showing up in the marketplace. I can filter it out, and like this helps with a lot of like new accounts who are just spinning up a new Nostr account that have no profile, no nothing, and they're just trying to sell something and then scam someone. Because you can just very simply filter a lot of that out. There's no reputation, there's no history. And because of the fact that there's a social aspect connected, plugged into the Nostr protocol, there's already like a bit of a natural inclination to not want to engage in like fraud and all this stuff, because if you have a social like media account backing the profile that's selling something, you want to keep that reputation, because it takes time to like build an audience, to get your followers, get people who you engage with regularly. And if you are like actively like using that account to like scam people or do stuff, then obviously people aren't going to want to follow you or engage with you anymore. So there is a natural like self-correcting mechanism that at least that I believe in. It's a question whether or not that actually works at scale. And that's why with milk market in particular, we're taking a little bit of a slower, more direct approach with like who we allow on the to sell on the marketplace, because we go directly to the farms. We talk with them, we like record videos with them, we like take a tour of the farm, we see their practices, we like make sure that everything like stands for what we want it to be, what we want it to stand for. And from there we then like have them onboarded and like help work with them to like get all that stuff done. But yeah, I think we have to allow ourselves and allow others to kind of have the responsibility and the optionality to like engage, and like not just like offload that to some third party remediation system that may or may not even resolve the query properly, because like so oftentimes like the buyer, or rather the seller, is the one who gets screwed actually most of the time in a lot of the whole dispute resolution systems. So it's mainly like buyer protection where that comes in. But yeah.
Cool. Great.
Does Shopster have a global footprint? And I ask specifically, so it's really interesting what you're doing, trying to find specific markets or kind of cohesive, coherent, independent social networks that can be tapped into that have some sort of problem, like the raw milk market that Noster as a storefront can solve some problem that has. And of course, worldwide, you have surges in adoption and things like BitChat when you have real practical problems with freedom of speech arise in certain regimes. And I'm just wondering, is there a global footprint for Shopster, or do you see that as kind of the next frontier? Are there global indigenous markets that for whatever reason don't function well that could be made to function?
Yeah, that's definitely I guess at least at the current moment in time, it's like what we want the next frontier to be. Because there are people who like sell across the world, that have sold across like different areas, like in Africa, Europe, South America, the US. It's largely the US based activity. But there are and you mentioned they're like the local like niche community markets. That's basically what we're trying to like function as. We're trying to function as like a platform for local economies to be able to like bootstrap themselves online and be able to like start like creating their own circular economy locally. And yeah, definitely, when I was like looking into even like the still correlated with raw milk, like Africa has by far the largest like informal raw milk economy. It's $100 billion industry. Like it's like the majority of like the milk market in the entire world, which is crazy.
Makes
So
sense.
there's, yeah, exactly. And Africa just is like even in terms of just like normal Bitcoin adoption and like Bitcoin like innovation, Africa is like the best place to be doing all this stuff, because there's so much like fervor and like actual need for a lot of this. Because that's like one of the problems that it comes with like trying to, I think, spread adoption within like developed nations, is that we still see it a lot as a like as the store, the gold store value, and we don't, the digital gold store value, and we're not like focused on like using it as in commercial activity or like engaging with it that directly, which is fine, because number go up is a very useful and valuable thing for people to like actually stick with using Bitcoin or holding it at least. But when it comes to actually like spreading the values and engaging with it, we have to tap into other markets that aren't necessarily the biggest places to be. They're not going to move the needle in terms of price, but that's where a lot of the actual real opportunity to solve real people's problems are. And that's something that I think I learned also coming from like the network school and stuff. There's just a lot of global opportunity to like engage in a lot of things, and like there's a lot of businesses that I'm aware of, even some of my friends that I know have founded businesses that are just like spin-offs of existing big companies, like Carta, like, which is uh basically like a startup cap table management platform. I have a friend who founded like a similar thing, but just for India, and is doing very well. And then I have other friends who have like founded like other marketplaces or payment solutions in South America, and like they're doing very well. So it's just like you have to adopt and adapt your strategies to like the specific markets you can. And if you can get a leg up in one of those markets, which it can be difficult due to like corruption and other things, that undeveloped like democratic systems and all these things, legal systems. If you can do that, though, you have a really good opportunity to like really make a big difference. It might not necessarily be the next Facebook, but you don't really have to be the next Facebook in order to actually change the world.
Does a Nostr-based market solve some endemic problem in emerging markets in Africa, in other countries that are still developing, that maybe it's not solving in the United States? I don't know. I mean, is that there's some specific use case like BitChat, of course, within a regime that suppresses free speech, that there's obvious
Mhm.
utility there. Is there the same sort of thing with a Nostr-based storefront?
It might not necessarily be as clear cut with like regards to BitChat or something, because like free speech is definitely, it's just like obvious and blanket. Since I don't have so much exposure to those regions
Right.
necessarily,
Yeah.
it's I don't have like the greatest overview, but I do know that like there is like obviously commercial restriction, like inter country, like with the with like the franc that's like that proliferates around and is used in Africa. They're not allowed to like engage in like commercial activity. Like countries aren't allowed to engage in commercial activity with each other. Like they're restricted in like their usage of their own currency, because France is basically still like a
Yeah.
colonial
Wow.
power and stuff.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
incredible.
there's a lot of there is like more to be I guess explored within that area of like allowing Africans to be able to like actually engage in commerce with each other, because there's just historically it's just been so like abused, and there's so much stuff that has gone around that is just has restricted their growth and their ability to like actually develop properly. And so I'm sure there's just like, it's just a matter of like actually going like head first and like actually being there on the ground to like actually get a real feel for it. But I can't like super speak to it.
No,
But yeah, there has to be so many
yeah, 'cause
opportunities there.
it's like a sociological question, how
Yeah.
these new technologies interface with different societies. So it's great that you're putting the technology forward, you're finding ways to apply it, but it is going to take feet on the ground in these different
Hmm.
places with deep knowledge of the tradition, the culture, the problems. And that's one of the exciting parts about Bitcoin and these kind of protocols that are decentralized and global, is you are going to see different solutions emerge in different jurisdictions just based on the legal structures, the traditions, the
Hmm.
problem. And so that will be, I mean, do you have any, you kind of said you don't, I guess. Maybe I want to ask you that. I was going to ask if you have any predictions as to how Nostr-based global markets will proliferate. Is it going to be like jurisdiction based? I mean, guys, that's kind of what you said, right? It's going to be local.
Yeah, that's definitely how I think like the ideal or not the ideal, but rather like how it's naturally going to progress is people are going to be finding local pockets where it really makes a big difference, and then start
Yeah.
growing out from there. Like it'll be like and that's like one of like the one of the things that I think is like the true like global reach, true globalization is pure localization. It's like you want to have maximal amounts of like local pockets that are supported by infrastructure, like common infrastructure, and that's like the
Yeah.
peak. That's the peak form of globalization, because you don't want everyone and everything to be relying on this single system that connects everything, and then as soon as one part of that system falls, like we saw in COVID, everything just goes to shit. and we want to
Yeah.
have like sustainable, small pockets of economic freedom where people can grow and like start growing out from there. So yeah, it's definitely how I believe like the whole evolution of Nostr marketplaces and like Nostr technologies and applications will build out. Because like BitChat, for example, even I think Kali, one of the developers who works on it with Jack, he saw that like there's like a million daily monthly active users for BitChat recently, and at least on the Android version, which is like crazy. So that means a million people are using Nostr. We just don't see it on the live social
Yeah.
feed, but and a large amount of that comes from like Uganda and I believe it was also Cuba and like where they've been having all the protests. So there's a lot of like activity that's coming from these countries that like we aren't necessarily exposed to, but there's just like there's actually a massive amount of demand. So there's going to be localized pockets that are like slowly growing out.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Globalization, but localized, kind of some melding between the two. Because when you said earlier that like commerce is this universal language between cultures, that if we can trade value in a way that's neutral, we can speak to people that we can't otherwise speak to, and kind of maybe that's pacifying, maybe that conduces to peace and getting along and whatnot. But that globalizing can also be like a leveling, right? When there's an interchange just based on commerce, then we're selling Diet Pepsi to indigenous tribes, right? And we're
Mm-hmm.
like we're kind of bringing the world together, but under the same corporate homogenization, deterritorializing in the same direction. Whereas I love this image of localized markets, but in some way being on a global platform or protocol. And so if you can affect that, not you, but if this type of Nostr based marketplaces can affect that, that's going to be this another trend in what globalization really means and can mean in a sort of good way, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. And then that's like that's the big goal. Because like with when it comes to just specifically with like the milk market and all that stuff, what we're trying to do is support like local farming economies and local food economies. We don't want to have just like we kind of defeats the purpose if like everything we're facilitating is just like okay cross country like shipping and all this stuff like even like it's funny because a lot of the stuff like we take for granted that is like really useful and very powerful like shipping infrastructure, storage infrastructure, and all this stuff actually removes a lot of like the direct cultural ties and like community that we actually develop because it removes similar had like the dispute resolution systems on platforms. It removes a lot of the responsibility from our side to like actually what we used to do is just like actually go to the farmer, shake their hand, like get to know them, be involved in directly with like the people we're interacting with and we're buying with. So we have to we're trying to bring back that sense of community development and localization because like fundamentally all culture and all society is based on small societies like the atomic family unit and then growing out from there.
Yeah.
Like you want to have these tight communities and a sense of culture, sense of love, sense of beauty within human beings that where you're not just like yeah that's some other guy over there on the other side of the planet and I have no association with them so I'll just send a missile over there because I don't really care because it's just like you lose the connection of like what actually makes us human.
Yeah. No, I love that point you make that global shipping and physical commerce structures have that effect. I mean, it's obvious when you think about it, but it's not something we focus on, that physical interconnection can have these really deleterious effects that maybe digital connection won't have when it can enable these market solutions. I had one more question before, if Lucas, you had some more. You just dropped earlier kind of innocuously that you're not on social media. And so I'm curious, I mean, it's evidently, I'd assume, a conscious decision. Was there some moment of rupture that you're like, no more social media, and then after that, things have changed? Or what motivated that? And do you think that has changed the way that you look at things and looking at Nostr not as a social media interface, but as something bigger?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think there was already a period of time when I was like in my end of high school, like early years of college, where I was getting a little bit wary of like interacting with like especially like on Instagram and certain things. Like my biggest thing that I used was Twitter, just because like I like the reading and like thinking of like following thought people and like all the think boys and everything like that online. Just getting a sense of all that. But I was still using Instagram, like Snapchat, TikTok, all this stuff. But TikTok was the big catalyst for me because there was a period in time during COVID where like my girlfriend and I all we would do is just like we'd be laying in bed and then we'd just be watching TikTok for hours, and then like our dates would be us like showing, "Hey, look at this TikTok," and then like we come back, and then it's just like that was our engagement, and like that was and that like obviously that correlates with like period of time where we didn't really like have good communication skills, or like were arguing and like doing all this stuff. So it's like there was a very obvious trend there where like, okay, I'm not like actually being like interactive with anyone, like doing anything properly. I'm not trying to actually developing the relationships that I already have. So by getting rid of it, TikTok was the first thing I did. And actually, weirdly, I didn't like consciously think that at the time. The big thing that actually got me was that that's when it came out that like TikTok was like controlled by the CCP and all this stuff, and like they were like logging our like data. And I was like, since I was getting into Bitcoin, I was like getting big into privacy and stuff, and I wanted to feel cool. Like, oh, I don't want to be tracked or any of this stuff. But so getting rid of those platforms, I slowly or gradually got rid of it. The hardest things to get rid of were basically like where I would like text my friends more than anything, and I just had to like force people to. I was like, I'm not gonna talk to you ever again unless you like message me on Signal or you message me on something like that. Like you have to communicate with me on this way. So it had to be like a bit of a forcing function there, and yeah, that's one of the reasons why with Nostr, because I still like I used it a lot more back then when I first discovered it, mainly because I was interested and like wanted to play around with it. But it's still fundamentally like a social media platform, and I think I remember seeing someone on Nostr post a note that was like us trying to. We're basically like if you're trying to make Nostr a successful social media platform, you're actually trying to replace the addiction mechanism from other social medias into Nostr, which isn't necessarily what like the stated goal of most of the applications are, but like at a fundamental level, because of like the nature of social media, like that's what you're trying to do. And like thankfully we have people who are building like in this that are like trying to do it in a healthy way, at least like introduce it as a more like direct community communication platform rather than just like a doom scrolling algorithmic feed thing. But you need to be able to have conscious engagement with these tools and realize that they do affect our daily life. And having like, because one app that's very useful to me, because especially with like the business, because I had to I've been posting like content, my girlfriend and I've been posting content for and my girlfriend's also my business partner in this, so just to clarify, because she's also involved. But we post content for Milk Market on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all these things. And I very quickly found myself falling into the hole of like browsing Instagram business podcasts and all this stuff, and now different content that I'm interested in. But I had to like figure out a way to like kind of fine tune my time for that. And like I downloaded this app called Freedom, which allows you to like time block and like restrict like when specific apps can be opened on your phone. So that's very, very helpful. And like now actually I just don't even engage with it much anymore. It's just like when I need to post. But yeah, there's the natural evolution, I think, of most things has to come to like the reason we even engage with this, because we want a sense of community. And I feel like one of the best ways of actually creating that sense of community is through like direct engagement economically. And that's why the focus that I see Nostr is developing is more of like a facilitator of spreading like Bitcoin adoption and like monetary adoption of the tools that we have. And that's why I originally came in for it, because I wanted to be able to contribute to Bitcoin and the spread of it in a way that that was more accessible and more reachable than just like improving Bitcoin. Because obviously, like who am I to say that I can like actually just change it and make it even better as a developer, rather than just like fixing bugs or all that stuff. Like I want to like spread it and get more people educated about it and expose them to it. So that's like the main goal.
Yeah, this is such an interesting thing. After this, tomorrow, we're going to review a paper by Heidegger on tools and technique or technical.
The question concerning technology.
The question concerning technology. And it does bring up this great question, which is that if you want to frame Nostr as, oh, this is a better Instagram or a better X or a better Facebook, then I don't think that it ultimately is successful, because I think what it reveals is that when you do move to the tool that is Nostr and use that technology, then what you quickly come to realize is that the better Instagram is no Instagram, and the better Facebook is no Facebook. And the goal, if the goal is to be a influencer with a large following, then the proper ground for that, the fertile ground for that is that which you stand upon, not the cyber community. We talk about having, like, I think this is the word we were searching for before, which is that we have connection without community on these social media platforms. And it's not connection that we ultimately seem to desire, because we're hyper connected, yet we don't feel like we have a sense of community. Men don't have friends, and you don't have this engagement with people that is fruitful, I guess, on these platforms. And so I just hope people, when they listen to this, they're able to really draw out something that I think you said that it's just so brilliant, which is that that's not the goal here. That's not the goal. Is that we are able to have more of this community, that if you want to see change in the world, that first you need to be that change, and then second, the best place to spread that change is to the person that you're sitting next to or that you're talking to face to face. Grant yesterday showed me that there's a social media influencer from his hometown who basically trolls people by presenting videos about farming that are entirely inaccurate. But because 99% of people, their relationship with their food source is going to an antiseptic supermarket and buying something that, on average, I found on average that the average food product travels 1,600 miles to get to the end user in the United States. And so you have this entirely disconnected feeling with your food and with the producer of that food. You don't have the sense of community. And what you're doing is you are rebuilding that from the ground up, the individual relationship with the producer, and encouraging people to get to know them in order to interact with them and to do commerce with them. So I just think that's such a beautiful, it's one of those things that it just feels right. Like, yes, I love the convenience of DoorDash, and I love the convenience
Mhm.
of Amazon and things like that. But um, nothing is fulfilling through that other than to fulfill this immediate desire of gratification that is fleeting and disappears so quickly. So yeah, it's very encouraging, I guess, to see that, and to know that you're having that experience and that your customers are having that experience. Um, yeah. So you're doing a fundraiser right now for Milk
Mm.
Market, and the goal with that is to be able to present a better product, to growth, and help drive this adoption. How is that fundraiser been going, and where, I guess, where do you expect to see impact with that when you're moving forward there?
Yeah, so the fundraising has been going well so far. We're at half our goal, so we're trying to raise 124,000. We've already hit half our goal, which has been great. And like nice thing about it is that it's not just like a normal like a Kickstarter type thing. So you actually get people who invest get ownership in the company, so they're also like along for the ride with for being a part of it, and being within the whole movement of what we're trying to accomplish. And with it, basically what we're trying to do, because like to your point about like developing the sense of community and also the kind of the importance behind everything. One thing that I also feel like is one reason why a lot of people also don't resonate necessarily with this mission of like localizing the food sources and like getting more of a relationship with it is because a lot of the messaging and discussion around it is actually comes at a level that's very like it weighs on you, because it's like, oh my god, this is very important, and like there's a lot of like there's a sense of responsibility there, and a lot of times like it could just be like a lot for people to take in and try to like actually act out on themselves, because if you're weighed down, you're not going to be able to move. So you want to be able to well, at least one of the things that I think and I've drawn from a lot of like other consumer products like Liquid Death, for example, the founder of that, when he was like marketing water, it's like people who are engaged in like healthy food, the healthy food aisle and all these things, they're marketing as with like the idyllic pasture and like there's no like and like the perfect pristine conditions of everything, and there's no like real sense of like a fun or like engagement with that, with like a community or anything. There's no sense of community around a specific brand or any of that. But like junk food companies, the way they market is like they create a community. They have like these instances of like of fun and activity around it. Like they have recognizable characters and all these people that you can, or all these things you can engage with. And that's why he like what he was when he was drawing from it is basically like we're a health food company because it's water, it's healthy, and it's also a sustainability company because they don't use plastic. But we want to market like a junk food company. We want to be able to like create that presence and that established brand recognition throughout people. And along the way, that's going to cause a divide, because like great art divides. Like that's just a tendency of great art. And part of what we're trying to do is actually introduce a bit more of like that entertainment and the fun. Because if you look at our Instagram feed or like our socials, we try to do a lot of that stuff. And we're at farmers markets, we pop up there, and we're trying to engage with like the people who are like coming by, giving them free coffee, just like kind of creating a bit more sense of like engagement, direct engagement with people. And we're trying to like try new things to experiment with ways of like getting people comfortable also with like raw milk, for example. Because like one of the things we're going to be doing with like the money that we get to raise is actually creating like a line of like I guess like sort of like skincare products, but like basically like soaps and creams and stuff like for people to like actually apply to their skin. Because like through the processing of like creating that it gets rid of any potentially harmful things that could come from raw milk. And you're also putting on your skin, not consuming it, so it alleviates a lot of like the regulatory pressure that comes from that, and people can get more comfortable and interested in it, and they get to see behind like, oh, we're actually sourcing direct, we're doing things directly with farmers. Like being able to raise gives us the ability to broaden our footprint, be able to access more of our community, and tap into like the need and sense of being that people are like longing for, and like doing it in a way that actually helps promote it creates like a virtuous cycle where it promotes sustainability of the soil, sustainability of the farmer, and then that promotes sustainability of the community, and just like starts developing a bigger and bigger flywheel with that. So that's like fundamentally what we're trying to accomplish. Greater localization, allowing for like our team to scale up a little bit to help with that. And just getting the ball rolling and getting people exposed to it more, and just like seeing having it having people have more conscious thought about it.
Yeah. So you were next to one of the world's most renowned investors for a few months. Have you asked Balaji to kick in a couple mil, get you really rolling, get you a blimp?
I haven't yet, but I am planning to. I'm going to be sending him a message later today, just to shoot the shot, see what he says.
That's great, man. Yeah, that's fantastic. I have seen I have seen you and Soy's content to promote Milk Market, and it's fun, it's engaging. Um, it is exactly what you say, where it's like the type of promotion that you would have around junk food, or like when I think of Liquid Death, like the first thing I think is like anybody holding a Liquid Death can should be like vaping and wearing an Affliction shirt, but they're not, like these are people that they're like, hey, I want to feel cool, but I also want to be healthy,
Mm.
and somehow we have, I guess this is kind of the fiat mindset, is that we've associated um, unhealthy risk with being cool. You think of like, you know, smoking cigarettes was, viewed as so cool because it's countercultural or whatever, but it was counterculture. Like all of these counterculture things are, not all of them, but a lot of counterculture begins as something dangerous and something risky, jumping out of, base jumping or skateboarding or whatever. Like these things are inherently, they carry risk, but we associate them with being cool because we as a people, I think, have become so docile and domesticated, um, that anything that breaks us out of that um, is viewed as like groundbreaking or being a trendsetter. So yeah, I certainly think you're on the right path. Like it's really cool to see Even just sitting here, hearing you talk about building culture and building community, like my biggest regret right now is that you're not sitting next to us having this conversation with us, is that we're doing this remotely because you feel the lack of connection. Like you just,
Hmm.
or sorry, you feel the lack of community. We have the connection, but we're missing the community. Um, so yeah, I just find that, I find that something maybe to ponder, I suppose, when you think about just interacting with humanity. Um, so I don't know, what else is there? What else is there to talk about? Like what's next for you? You get, I think this is going to be a successful fundraise, and I think that you're going to be able to really make some change. Are you just thinking about kind of concentrically expanding your circle there, starting in Washington and or Seattle and moving deeper into Washington and deeper across the Pacific Northwest? What really is your plan?
Yeah, that's definitely that's part of it. We're hopefully going to be like really locking in on getting as much locally sourced like products here in Seattle and Washington, and then from there expand to the PNW. Because we do actually already have like a few like beef producers also that we've been talking to. Because we're going to be expanding into different product categories like beef and eggs and all these other things. Like we want to like kind of help localize the entirety of like the food options that you can have, especially healthy whole foods, um, and work along the coast, especially since it's just like pretty convenient for us. Like it's able to like, and there's a lot of largely the West Coast has a lot of people who are like like really into this type of thing, so it's like allow us to expand from there, and then work our way like yeah just across the country and trying to get involved a bit more, meeting more of the producers, meeting more people across the country, and just like getting involved, spreading that knowledge to people like by making content and all that stuff. Yeah, it's just a matter of yeah, taking it day by day and just making our way forward gradually. Because there are days where it's like it can be, I guess, a bit like overwhelming. The like it's like setting out the mission of like trying to like make markets more free and all this stuff. But whenever you just yeah, just take it slowly and like make gradual progress. Like the 1% improvements compound over time. So it's just a matter of yeah, taking it a step forward and working towards it.
Yeah, citing James Clear and Atomic Habits will get you very far on this podcast. That's
Definitely.
fantastic. I, like the thing that the thing that really draws me about working in the space of Bitcoin is that there are healthy people who are fit that don't know about Bitcoin, but there are not very many people that know about Bitcoin that are not healthy and fit. And there are people that have community, um, or that don't have community, and don't know about Bitcoin, and there are people that do, but there are very few people that are that know about Bitcoin that don't consciously strive to create a community. And I guess I think I'm mostly concerned with health and fitness. I think that, like what they say, the man who has everything wants nothing, or what the man who has his health wants everything, but the man who doesn't have his health only wants one thing. And I think that, um, all of human experience seems to be kind of downstream from your health, from your physical health, your mental health. And what I see in the Bitcoin community is that focus on health and community and fitness, which is community is a metric of fitness. And being to be to be healthy, you need relationships and you need social engagement. I see all those things as kind of being downstream from Bitcoin, and so getting in the right boat, I guess, is kind of the encouragement to work in that space. Um, I just think it's fantastic what you're doing. Um, it really is. It's an honor to watch you work, because the way that um, you note this just like 1%. You're not. It's not $1 billion company. It's not a $1 billion. It's not even $1 billion total addressable market where you're at right now. But you view that as that's not. the reason why I would do this. Like, what is, you know, why do I need to be global and shallow when I can be local and deep?
Exactly.
And I think that that's moving us towards something better, I guess. So, yeah, really pushing the needle in a way that um, might not be seen on a global stage, but certainly can be seen on a local stage. And, now that Farcaster has taken a dump, I think Balaji might be something,
I was
something
thinking the exact same thing.
You're like, man, I'm just going to dive right in here. Timing is perfect. So, yeah. Um, I don't know. Grant, what else
I
you
don't
got
know.
for
I
our
said I
man?
was going to ask an antagonistic question before the camera started rolling, and I haven't. So I feel like I should throw out one, which is one we threw out to Max Hillenbrand. So this is a good one. So Lucas and I were talking with philosopher, technologist, builder Ardian Tola, who is somebody who's building on Bitcoin. He has this project Canonic.xyz where he's putting books on chain for very idealistic reasons. So he's a builder on Bitcoin, and yet kind of for somebody who's building on Bitcoin. So imagine that there's different levels of Bitcoin revelation. You first realize, oh, this is a store of value. It's going to preserve my money. And then, oh, this is a medium of exchange. We can use this and disintermediate third parties. Oh, this is going to end war. And then you ascend up this pyramid of like revelations on Bitcoin. And then what's the one at the top of that pyramid? And so Ardian Tola, he said, he just kind of dropped it to us. He said, Bitcoin is the enemy. And so it's almost like this, what does that mean when somebody who is way down the Bitcoin rabbit hole says Bitcoin is the enemy? But the question for you is, if somebody following a similar train of reasoning said to you, Calvadev, I'm deep into Noster. I've been thinking this thing, all the ways down the road and all the ways it's going to make society better. And my final revelation is Noster is the enemy. What does that mean?
Oh man, dang, that's a interesting question. I think that kind of points to like the lines of like Bitcoin is for everyone, because basically it's like it's not only for like the people you love, but also it's for open to those that can be adamant against whatever it is that you're I guess that you're fighting for. But interesting, if Noster is the enemy, I would say I think uh it's also somewhat a function of like how we go in a lot of times uh into something new, and like how we're developing something with the idea that the tool fundamentally is the thing that we're trying to like optimize for. But at some point, if we actually like use the tool to accomplish its goal, using the tool becomes the very thing that is like holding us back from actually optimally reaching the goal. Because like the sense of community is what we're hoping for. Like using Noster at some very, very far end point, once we actually like reach the level where Noster is the thing that connecting all our communities and everything, like the need for it kind of completely disappears. If like you're still engaging with it, you're actually removing yourself from the actual direct human engagement that you're communicating with. So that's I think how I would take that. Like the tool at some point becomes the thing holding you back from achieving like the quote unquote perfection of the intended original goal.
No, beautifully said. And we're talking Heidegger's The Question Concerning Technology tomorrow, and that's such a beautiful bridge to that. So yeah, I love that explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, the thing that got you here is not the thing that will get you to where you actually want to go. It's just a step that you have to, you have to leave it behind eventually. You think about like, um, I would say like, I like hiking and I hate being cold. And so I would go hike and I would have my three pairs of socks and three layers, on everything. Um, and as you hike along, then you start to warm up and you start to become acclimated. You start and it's cold and it actually gets colder as you go up, yet you warm and you become used to it. And periodically you stop and you take off the gloves and you take off a pair of socks and you take off a layer and you leave behind these tools that were necessary conditions to get you to where you are, but they're not sufficient to get you to where you're going. and you have to leave that thing behind. So,
And it's tough
um,
to know that point when you have to leave the thing
yeah,
behind. It's the knowing the point when you need
Hmm.
social media. That's tough. You need to bootstrap, you need to meet people maybe.
yep,
It's tough to know the point when the tool becomes the thing that's holding you back. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just the means to the end.
Right. And it
Yeah,
becomes the end at some point and you got to not let it.
yeah. So, what is the end? What is the ultimate goal?
What's the meaning of life?
What is
Yeah,
the meaning of life?
I was about to ask you guys the exact same thing. So what do you guys think that the end is?
So I'll take a shot at answering it because I want to hear what you have to say, and I definitely want to hear what Grant has to say. The thing that hit me when I first learned about Bitcoin, like of all the things that we can talk about, the thing that struck me was that Bitcoin incentivizes collaboration instead of competition. And it's fascinating to know that the only thing the only thing that we know of, which is absolutely scarce, is also the thing that removes our scarcity mindset. And it encourages us to work together because when we work together, we all benefit, as opposed to the abundance of fiat, of an ever expanding supply, encourages us to compete for our share of that ever expanding supply and to always be competing for more of it, because having this much today is equivalent to having this much divided by 2 tomorrow. And it becomes less, and what we have becomes less and less over time. Whereas with Bitcoin, what we have becomes more and more over time. So I guess that's a Bitcoin centric attempt to answer that question, but it is revealing in that the best things in life are free, that um, love is probably the thing that trumps everything else. And so the meaning, I guess, of life is to find, or not to find love. The meaning of life is to allow love, because when you look for something, you never find it. Wanting something is painful, but seeking something is pleasure. And it turns out that oftentimes when we are seeking, what we actually need to do is stop looking and just let go and surrender to the thing that is going to bring us. Like it was always there. The love was always there. You just need to get out of your way. The healthy relationships were always there. You just need to get your ego out of the way. The healthy body was always there. You just need to get your addictions out of the way. So I don't know. Yeah, the meaning of life is love and collaboration, I guess. There's mine.
That's good. That's
Grant?
good. Oh, no, I don't know that I would presume to be able to pontificate on that subject.
Presume.
Instead I'll give what I kind of a memento mori style meditative technique that maybe people can unconceal or reveal to themselves what reality is trying to tell them as far as what its meaning is, what is already pregnant in reality. And one of those things, sometimes I do this, so memento mori is this idea: keep around you symbols of your own passing, your own mortality, like a skull to remind you you're going to die. Um, a way to make this even more involved is imagine you're already dead. Like sensorially do as much as you can to bring yourself to that point where you're already dead, right? But then imagine, you can't imagine that, right? Because that's the extinction of your ability to imagine that. Imagine instead you are at that moment after you just came alive after being dead. So what about reality floods your senses, right? So if you move from a state of nonsense, of no sensing whatsoever, like does the mere act of filling your lungs fill you with a sort of sublime joy? Does like the light itself, the way that it cascades against the surface of brick buildings and brings out a very specific shade of red, is that something that strikes you? And then do you want to hear the voice again after aeons of being dead, the voice of your loved ones, right? Who you now have the opportunity to do that with. And so again, that's not the meaning of life. And I said I don't want to pontificate at that, but I think what we can always foster is like ways of revealing that are beyond the technological, like beyond the tools that we have. We can begin to look at life in different ways by considering our relationship to it in ways that are not just through the tools we have, not just the world I see is the spyglass I look through that is Twitter that shows me tweets, right? The world is a much broader thing. So focus on ways that you can engage with it that will reveal different things about the world to you.
Calvadev, we leave you with the last word. What do you have for us?
Yeah, I was gonna sort of off of that too, and this is a good place, I guess, to leave it unexplained. But one thing, one of my theories of like how um I guess like human consciousness and like the organization of like life is structured is like basically like our we are to the universe as like our emotions are to ourselves or something like that. That's like the closest I can like gone to it. So like each individual like human being is like anger, happiness within our own mind, and then like we dissolve away and like reconvene with like the original like larger entity, and each universe itself is like an emotion of whatever larger entity is that of the universe. And uh what I think is, and even to the point of like the Noster is the enemy, almost like our lives are the enemy at some point, because or like our flesh bodies are the enemy, because like I do believe like the end goal of everything is love and cooperation, and like we're just like fine tuning ourselves, like reach a point where we can have optimal cooperation, and we basically dissolve back into our universal shell and reconvene with the energy fields of the universe, and then just become one. And like that's pure cooperation, because we are just like one singular entity and motivated for its singular purpose or a singular goal, whatever that may be. I don't know what the universe's goal is, but I think ours is to be as cooperative and as lovable as possible.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful way to end it. Calvadev, thank you so much for joining us. It truly is like I'm honored to know you. I'm so impressed by what you've done in the space. The first time that I saw you was when you made a presentation about Noster and um, talked about operation security and talked about the things that it could allow the world. And you speak with not just knowledge about these things, but with the practicality that it brings something better to your life. And it allows you to be just more of you instead of to be part of something else. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. As we kick it out, let people know where they can find Milk Market, where they can find Shopster, etc., where they can follow, etc. Just let people know how they can join in this mission of yours. And of course, we're going to tag the fundraising campaign as well in this. And also, I'll be a contributor as well. So I want to be a part of this. Want to be a part of this mission.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, you can find like the parent is Shopster Markets, SHOPSTR Markets with an S.com. And like there you can see like the Shopster Market and Milk Market. Both of them are Shopster.market and Milk.market. You can, on social media, you can follow Milk Market at Milk Market Media. And then if you ever want to like get my contact or anything, you can go to calva.dev, just calva.dev, and all my like my personal website's there. You can email me, you can message me. So yeah, all that's great, and love to really appreciate being a part of this and like having the discussion. It was really, really, really great to just think and be able to go back and forth. Loved it.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah, my friend, it is absolutely wonderful to see the sun shining in your face and see you smiling and to see that you're recovered from your marathon and doing well. So,
Oh man,
um,
still trying to recover, but my
I
calves are
bet,
still killing me, but
I
getting there.
bet. Thank you so much, and I guess we'll talk to you next time, man. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.